There we go. Okay, so welcome everybody to our Prepare Your Business for End of Financial Year webinar. It's great to have you all here with us, and hopefully we can guide you through end of financial year so it's a little less stress. So the whole purpose of being prepared for end of financial year is to maximise your tax return, remove the stress involved around tax time, gives you a chance to take stock of your business and help you be prepared and plan for the future. We've all had an interesting 12 to 18 months, and it's super important that we actually take the time to actually have a look at where we've been and where we're going. But before we get started, here's a little bit about us. My name is Sandra Price. I am the founder of Tradie Bookkeeping Solutions. As our name suggests, we niche in the trade businesses, and we provide bookkeeping, cash flow and money mindset coaching for our clients. We not only manage the finances of your business, but so you have complete peace of mind about the money side, but we also try and help our clients to become truly profitable and grow sustainably for the future. So traditionally, accounting and bookkeeping services are transactional. So we do the books, prepare the taxes, numbers in, numbers out, and you pay a fee. But what about your profit? I'm sure we've all been in the situation where we've looked at our profit and loss and we've seen a profit, hopefully, at the bottom, but it doesn't correlate with what's in your bank account. So that's where we come in. So what we do is actually make sure that there is profit in the bank account for you at the end of each quarter by building on your cash flow forecasting and with your money mindset. So let's get cracking. That's enough about us. Let's get into end of financial year. Okay, so the very first thing to do for your bookkeeping for end of financial year is to reconcile your bank accounts. Now, not only is it a matter of, say, we are a 99% zero-based bookkeeping firm, so you will hear me refer to zero, but it's standard across all accounting packages. So reconciling the bank account, so not only are we matching off payments against entries on your bank statements, but it's also important to make sure that at the end of the month, you check that the bank statement balances in zero equal the bank statement balance on the actual PDF from your bank statement from your bank account. Now, we get a lot of queries, why do we have to do this? You have this feeds coming through. Look, as much as we love Xero and all online accounting packages, it's not perfect. There are hiccups along the way. There's sometimes issues with the banks and their connections, and transactions get lost. So a fine example was the 29th of February. We found interesting, we had a few little glitches and anomalies happen on that particular date. And it's a matter of, if you don't match your bank statement balance to zero, then you could actually be missing out on some really important deductions or income as well. But when we say reconcile your accounts, we're not just talking about your bank accounts. We also mean your credit cards, any loans that you may have, whether it be finance for equipment, perhaps it was a cash flow loan. They need to be reconciled as well. Ensure that your petty cash, if you're still running a petty cash, is done, and your PayPal, Stripe, Square, your payment gateway is also reconciled. So similarly to the bank accounts, by reconciling that, we're actually just double checking that everything has been entered and that we have, that nothing's been missed. We don't want to miss an entry that, could make a big difference to your, to your BAS or to your tax at the end of the financial year. Now, the next step is for us to reconcile your accounts payable. Now, it's important to do this at the end of financial year, but we also recommend that you do this at least the minimum at the end of each quarter. Now, when we're talking about reconciling your accounts payable, obviously it's not like your bank statements where it's you tick it off as it comes in. Reconciling your accounts payable includes things like checking that all your bills are entered. So getting a supplier statement from your suppliers and checking off the statement against the bills that you've got in zero so you haven't missed one. Now, we all probably, for those of us that are in the office, know what it's like sometimes with our tradies to get information and paperwork through, and we find those glove boxes full of receipts. So that's why this one is really important, that nothing has been missed, and that, what you've got in zero is actually correct to what is owing. And most of the time it's just a matter of a simple email to the accounts department asking for the statement. So if you have any credit notes in there, now's the time to allocate those credit notes against invoices or bills. Generally what we do, and it's the same when making payments, if you're making payments throughout the month against your statement, is you allocate it to the oldest invoices or bills first, and then bringing it forward. Now, sometimes it's a straight, you've bought a part, it hasn't been the right part, you've refunded it and you've got a full refund, then you would allocate those together. Check any outstanding purchase orders that you may have in your system if you run purchase orders. It's a great opportunity to see if you have any bills coming up that you may not have known about. Then lastly, but not least, is to review the aged payables report. Now, the aged payables report, this is where we're looking for anything that might look a bit odd, is probably an easy way. So look for duplicates, once again, comparing your supplier statements to the bills to make sure that nothing has been missed. Check in the draft bills to ensure that if you're using something, say like Dext, formerly Receipt Bank or HubDoc, sometimes they get pushed through to draft and not actually to an approved bill. So just making sure that everything's neat and tidy and where it should be. And when you're running the aged payables report, you need to just pay attention if there's anything there that perhaps has been entered twice, or say if you've seen a bill that you go, right, I'm sure I've paid that. There's a good chance either that's where it's been paid twice, it's been entered twice. Maybe it's a line from the bank statements that hasn't come through. Or another possibility as well is, and we've all done it, is it's been paid from a personal account rather than from a business account. So you can still claim that deduction. In that case, you would just mark that as paid from, if it was from your drawings or director loan account. Next, similar situation, we want to reconcile your accounts receivable. So this is all of the money that's outstanding to you. So once again, we want to check that all the invoices are entered. So again, review that there's not any sitting in draft or waiting to be approved. And you want to invoice everything you possibly can prior to the 30th of June. Now, again, you want to check any credit notes that may be sitting in the system. If you can allocate them against an invoice, or perhaps they need to be refunded, it's just a great opportunity to tidy everything up. You want to try and have the books as nice and clean as you possibly can. So sit down with your tradies, check outstanding quotes and jobs, see if there is anything that you can invoice. Has something been converted from a quote? You've won the job, you've converted, and you need to collect a stage claim. Or has it been completed and it just needs to be invoiced? we all get busy, and I know particularly at this point of time, it is super busy for our tradies. So it's a good opportunity to just sit down and spend 5 minutes and going over what jobs you've got on, what can be invoiced. Send statements to all your customers that owe you money. Now, if you've got anything else as well, perhaps that has been sitting there for a while, this is the chance to chase those debts up. And we often start just with a simple phone call asking, have they received the invoice, or have they received the statement? More often than not, if you're dealing with a bigger company, it may have gone to the wrong person, someone hasn't passed it on, it hasn't been signed off on, but it just gives you the opportunity to have a conversation and start some dialogue with your customers as well. Perhaps they're having money difficulties, or might need a little bit of extra time, and so you can have that conversation. Now, unfortunately as well, there comes a time when you may have to write off any bad debts, and now would be the time to do it. We really recommend that if you are going to write off any bad debts, is that you contact or have a chat with your bookkeeper or accountant on how to do this, so you can make sure that it's included in this year's tax. Next, we're going to talk about superannuation. Now, if you can possibly pay your June quarter superannuation prior to the 22nd of June, that will allow you to claim that amount as a tax deduction in this financial year. If you were to pay it after that date, it won't hit the superannuation funds until July, and that's when you'll have to claim it. So you'll have to wait for an additional year. It's just a really easy way that you can just add another deduction in when it comes to preparing your tax. Now, the reason why we say 22nd of June, that's the date that has been given to us by Xero, and you'll find it'll be similar across the board. Obviously, there is going to be a massive amount of people processing their super early to claim that deduction, but it's going to take time for it to process, be debited from your account, and then distributed to the actual super funds prior to 30 June. Now, maybe you can't pay your whole super. If you've got the opportunity, you might be able to pay a month or two, or you know what, it's completely fine if you move it and just pay it next year. Just means that you will have to wait to claim that as a deduction to the following year. Most importantly, and this really comes into play when you actually get to your accountant and they are starting to compile your tax returns, is to prepare your paperwork. I know it's a pain. It's one of those jobs that nobody wants to do. But by doing this prior to getting there, you are going to save yourself so much time and money, and you won't have the accountants chasing you. So important documents that you need to provide is all paperwork regarding any new loans. Now, because we've had COVID, there's a few different, possibilities. So you need all your bank statements as of the 30th of June. I've got Prosper as an example, any cash flow lending, any finance that you've taken up, particularly maybe over this COVID period, there was a lot on offer. The Q Rider, if you are able to access the Q Rider loan, you'll need to provide your statements for that. If you've received any grants or other government support, all that documentation you'll need for your existing loans. If you've purchased or leased any new equipment, vehicles or any type of assets, it's important that those are provided so they can ensure that it's been entered and taken up in this financial year. And if you've sold any assets at all that you've is previously owned. You need to include all that documentation as well. When we're working with our accountants, we actually set up a file in the back part of Xero, and we'll just call it the 2021 tax. And that's where we drop all of that information in, so it's right there ready for the accountants to use. So as the bank statements come in and we've got them from our clients and we've done all of our reconciliations, everything matches and we're happy with it, we then drop those statements in there. It's a nice, quick, easy way for them to have access to it. And it also, they can look there before perhaps having to come to you. And my motto is, if in doubt, include it with you, include it in there. We always ensure that all our insurance documentation is in there. I pop in there our excuse me, our work cover documentation, any finance, loans, anything that I think the accountant might be interested in. And it doesn't hurt too, as a bonus, is to get in contact with your accountant, and they should have a checklist to provide you of exactly what documentation that they need. So being on the front foot will actually save you time and give you brownie points when it comes to seeing the accountant, because they know the work, everything is going to be there and ready for them. So update your employee and subcontractor details. This is a great opportunity at the end of year to have your staff complete new staff detail forms. You'd be surprised how many times you will find that someone has changed address, they've changed their email, maybe their phone's changed, they've got a different superannuation fund. It's surprising actually what comes out of the woodwork, and it's just, as I said, a good opportunity to make sure that you've got all your details correct. Now, when it comes to your subcontractors, you want to ensure that in Xero, your subcontractor details are correct. So by the 28th of August, you have to lodge your TPAR, the taxable payments annual report, to the ATO, and that's a list of all the money that you've paid to your subcontractors for labour. If it is invoice for parts or materials only, then it doesn't need to be included. But to complete that form, you must have their ABN, their address, and double check that they're still registered for GST. Now, we quite often at the same time will do a check. We go to ABN lookup, just copy the ABN across and ensure that we're still we're claiming GST where we should. Sometimes we find that they've actually registered for GST halfway through the year. So there's an opportunity to regain some GST in your BAS. Now, these details are really important for when we go also for pay employees, for when you're processing your STP finalisation. So that is what we would have called doing your payment summaries or your group certificates. Now that it's all through STP and online, having all that information will make it a lot smoother process. Update your organisation settings. So in your Xero file or your software file, go through and check that your legal trading name is correct, your ABN is correct, your postal address is correct. Now, quite often I've got a lot of businesses that no longer have a commercial premise. They're now working from home. Hi, Ryan, if you could just pop yourself onto mute, that would be awesome. Thank you. So ensure that your GST registration details are up to date. Now, also make sure you've included your website and your email address into your file and your logo. This is all opportunities for branding. And in particular, I know what it's like when we are chasing for a client, trying to chase contact details, and it's not filled in on their invoice template, which pulls through from your organization settings. So it's a great chance to update everything, make sure it's all there. Perhaps you've had a new logo, you've revamped your business during this time. Maybe you've had to use the buzzword pivot slightly. And that is pretty much, you know, that it's something that we tend to forget to do. So now's a good time to do that. Number 8, we are flying through today. So ensure you're registered for STP. Now, STP stands for Single Touch Payroll. It has come in that as of the 1st of July, if you are a closely held employee, you must be registered for STP by the 1st of July, I beg your pardon. Most businesses that have staff have already registered for STP. So if that's the case and you or your partner on the payroll, then you won't have to worry. But you need to get in contact with your bookkeeper or your accountant and just double check whether you are registered for STP. You may have already received an email or a letter from the ATO. I've had a lot of clients coming through to us asking, you know, are we covered? Is this right? And we've already had it done for them. So unfortunately, it is compliance, but it is another thing that we have to do. And reconciling your payroll. Now, we really recommend perhaps that you get in contact with your bookkeeper if you already have one, or your accountant with this step, and we're available if anyone needs any help with this. When you're reconciling the payroll, this is the chance where you actually are checking that what you've processed in your software equals the money that has left the bank account. We often find perhaps there's been a transposed number. We've had the case where one person was actually just not paid and they didn't pick up on it. So we've been able to rectify that. We also look at whether it's been coded correctly. Now, when we're saying coding with payroll, there are quite a few different payroll accounts, and it's important that, you know, when it, say for instance, when the money leaves the bank and it shows on the bank rec that it goes to a payable account. So payroll payable 804, it is in 0. So it's important that that's coded correctly. You also need to talk to your employees and let them know not to expect a payment summary from you, as now all information is reported through STP. So their new income statement will be used to pre-fill their tax through MyGov or their registered tax agent. So it's a chance to check with your employees to see whether they're registered for MyGov and that they understand that they won't actually get a physical payment summary or group certificate as it used to be. I get in trouble for still referring to it as that. It will actually all automatically go through now through your software, thanks to STP, and be available for them to access virtually straight away. Now, the deadline for having your payroll processed and lodged with the ATO is the 14th of July. But a handy tip is that if, for instance, your payroll is processed and finished on, say, the 29th of June, you don't have to wait. You can actually then at the same time process your STP finalizations, as the 30th of June will actually carry forward into the next financial year. So it's after the last payroll of that financial year, you can go ahead and reconcile and submit your STP for finalisation. So it'll give you a bit of extra time there as well. I'd suggest now is that you actually start going through and preparing some of these. So reconcile your payroll now. You can see what has gone out of the bank versus what has been processed. And I know, for instance, sometimes you might be the owner and you're processing your pays, but you actually physically haven't paid that to yourself. Then there's some adjustments in journals that need to happen there just to make it all balance out. So it's a great time to start getting ahead of this, and that's how you'll actually breeze through it, is because you'll be ready. So as I mentioned before, payroll can be quite tricky. So just don't be afraid to reach out if you need any help with that. And lastly, our last point is to do a stock take. So stock take all your tools, materials and equipment in the sheds, in their cars, the work utes, and on your work sites. Now, this will help you set up an asset register if you don't have it already. So you'll have a list of exactly what equipment you have and where it is, but it's also important that you provide that to your accountant at the end of year as well for any depreciation that needs to happen. It may be an opportunity as well for you to have a look and see, you know, can you set your vehicles up with a supply of the basics, you know, whether it be, you know, maybe it's like screws and nails, or, you know, plumber's tape and, you know, sorry, it's all just gone out of my head. But those basic things that are required in nearly every job, it will save so much time rather than your guys getting to site going, right, we've got to do this job. Oh, I need these. I need screws. And then they have to go off site and get screws from Bunnings and come back. You know, can be up to an hour of lost productivity depending on how far you are away. So there's little things that you can do there, but also just making sure that, you know, all the equipment is accounted for. And you know exactly where it is. Now, our bonus tip, now that you've completed all these wonderful tasks and you're ready for end of financial year, your paperwork is all completed and reconciled, it's a fantastic opportunity for you to sit down and review your cash flow forecast, review your expenses, have a look at things like your charge out rates, run your reports, look at your profit and loss, look at your balance sheet. It's not necessarily as scary as it sounds. Your profit and loss just lists your income less expenses. So it's a great way to see where your money's being spent. And if there's areas where you can, as I say, trim the fat. A lot of places we find we get a lot of what we call subscription creep. So, you know, you'll think, oh my God, that app is awesome. I'm going to use that all the time. And you subscribe to it. And within a month, you're like, oh, you know, it's not working. You don't have the time, but you don't cancel it. So it's a great opportunity to actually go through your expenses and look at where you're at and see where you can save some money. Look at your phone bills, have across the months. Is there any particular month that stands out that is a lot higher? You know, is there a reason for that? You know, can you go to some of your suppliers? Perhaps if you can look at, if you don't already, say, have a Bunnings account, and that will give you an extra 30 days of cash flow because it won't be due until it's 30 days end of month. So if you buy something on the 1st of May, you don't actually have to pay for it until the 30th of June. So there's little things there that you can do. And perhaps, you know, you may purchase all of your equipment, your materials from one supplier. Go to that supplier and ask them, hey, you've pulled the report, you can tell them exactly how much money you've spent with them. We've spent X amount of dollars with you. Can you do us a discount? Now, there's no harm in asking. The worst thing they can do is say no. And if that's the case, the only thing you've lost is maybe 5 minutes of your time for a phone call. But it can actually make a huge difference. I know of a tradie that did that and actually saved enough money from one supplier that they hired a new plumber on their team with that savings. So that's phenomenal. And that's a whole lot more work that they can then bill and sales that they can bring in. Review your cash flow forecast. Now, that generally can make people a little bit scared when they hear the word cash flow forecast. And it shouldn't be. Cash flow forecast should be one of the main tools that you use to drive your business in what we call your dashboard, your business dashboard. And that's all your numbers. Your numbers don't have to be scary. Cash flow forecast is just a matter of putting onto a spreadsheet the dates of when your income is coming in and when your bills are due. So then you can actually have a running balance, and you can see in 2 months' time, my God, we're not going to have enough income to cover what's got to come out. So it gives you the opportunity to actually go out and do something about that. Bring in some extra sales if you need to, move your jobs forward, invoice more frequently. You can't ask for money if you haven't invoiced it. So it just gives you that ability to sort of see a little bit further into the future and actually prepare. We found a lot of our tradies were, and I'm in a lot of tradie groups. So I'm a member of Master Plumbers. I'm a member of Master Builders. I'm in the Awesome Women in Construction group. I'm in Facebook pages of how, even though the trades area during COVID didn't really slow down, there was a period of, 3 to 4 weeks where everyone shut down their spending. So there was that uncertainty. It was before JobKeeper was announced. We were all going into lockdown. No one knew what was going to happen. No one knew if they were going to have any income. So it was a case of where everyone just went, nope, and put all their jobs on hold. But once we actually got, the government came through with their cash flow boost with JobKeeper, the confidence started to build again. Now, once that confidence started building again, the jobs came through. But you need to actually have enough money over that particular period of time to pay your staff and to keep paying your expenses. So that's where things like cash flow forecasting really, those that spend the time to do that actually have pulled through at a much faster and a much better rate. So important tax dates. Now, apart from our usual BAS dates and our superannuation payment dates, these are the relevant dates regarding end of financial year. So June 22 is the last day to pay your super via Xero Super or your superannuation clearinghouse. By July 14, you have to lodge your STP final event. So that's your single touch payroll final event, the updated version of your payment summaries. August 25 is the last date to review, prepare and lodge your TPAR or taxable payments annual report. Now this report is, as I mentioned previously, is where you list what money you've paid to your subcontractors. Now, we have powered through this, which is awesome, because I don't want to take more of your time than we need to. We've got a checklist, which is what we've just gone through, that's available that you can download. And it's available in our Facebook group. So my business is Tradie Bookkeeping Solutions, and we have a group called the Profitability Project by Tradie Bookkeeping Solutions. Now, come along and join. It's we post, lots of business ideas and, tips and tricks on ways to make your business more profitable. And you'll find that in the files section of the group, we have a copy of our checklist, and we'll also have some other great tools as well that you're free to use. Download it as many times as you like. You don't have to put your email address in. It's all there for you. Just join the group and download. So so it's on a Facebook group, the Profitability Project by Tradie Bookkeeping Solutions. So I'm going to now, if anyone has any, I'll open it up for any questions. If anyone has any questions at all they would like to ask, now's your chance. If not, we'll wrap it up shortly. We're going to have a copy of this available on our YouTube channel. So if you also follow our Facebook page, which is Tradie Bookkeeping Solutions, you'll be able to grab a copy of it from there, but we'll also email you out a link as well. So you can find it and you can replay it as many times as you like. Just also remember that we're here if you have any questions or need any help. We do reviews on your software files, which is just like a health check. So we just make sure things are going where they're supposed to, and just help you with some coding and try and make things a lot smoother and a lot easier for you by using our skills to do that. So I'm going to pop back to the video and I'm just going to bring it open. So does anybody have any questions?
I think I'm okay. I'm just not looking forward to all the work that needs to be done.
Yes, it can be a little bit like that. And it's probably, I've thrown a lot of information at you at a very short amount of time. I do tend to talk a little bit fast, so I apologize for that. But in the minute, if you've got any questions, that's my email address. That's my direct email address there. So sandra@tradiebookkeepingsolutions.com.au. Feel free to email me. We can do a 15-minute call over the phone if you like, and we can answer any questions and help you along the way. I know end of financial year is really stressful for a lot of people, so we want to try and remove a lot of that stress. And it's simply by just being a little bit more organised. That's our fun. That's what we love doing. We're crazy people like that. Okay, well, if we have no more questions, I will wrap it up. And we are extremely well ahead of time. I allowed for an hour and we've done it in 45 minutes, which is great. So thank you so very much, everyone, for joining us and listening to me. And I wish you a very happy end of financial year. And as I mentioned, if there's anything that we can do to help you, please reach out. We love to pay it forward, so please don't hesitate to contact us.
Thank you.
Thanks very much for your time, Camelia.
Bye.
Bye.